Hi, I'm Alex.
And I'm Amy.
Our project is called Mind, Body, and Soul, the Nature of Well-Being, and this podcast is just one small piece of the overall project. We are making a documentary that follows our hike on the Continental Divide Trail that will explore how spending time in nature affects a person's mental, physical, and spiritual well-being.
We are guinea pigs in a sense because we will be documenting our own experiences and recording changes that we find. Along the way, we are interviewing people about their experiences in nature to see how they have been affected.
Much of the benefits that come from being in nature are subjective, and therefore hard to measure in a quantifiable way. That's why we have turned to recording stories as a way to distribute this knowledge. Since the beginning of human culture, we have compressed valuable information into stories, and that's how we have shared wisdom throughout the generations.
We hope that the stories we gathered during this project will help spread some of the wisdom that can be found in the wilderness. Episode 12. An interview with Bill One-Gallon Nedderman sharing his motto, philosophy, and impressive outdoor resume. One-Gallon Nedderman is just an ordinary person who loves exploring the outdoors. Over the years, he's paddled more than 44,200 miles, hiked more than 55,000 miles, and biked over a whopping 64,000 miles. He's embraced a nomad lifestyle and always follows the motto, do it. He's spent over 7,500 nights sleeping under the stars, and he strongly believes in the philosophy of KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Why don't you start off by telling me what your names are?
Okay, my name is Bill Nedderman, or also One Gallon on the trail, and
how do you get 1 gallon?
1 gallon comes from hiking on the Appalachian Trail in 1982. At about the halfway point, there's the half-gallon challenge to eat a half-gallon of ice cream, and I ate a gallon. And as far as I know, I was the first one to ever eat a gallon of ice cream, so it kind of stuck from there. And I still like ice cream, and but I haven't ate a gallon since, and I didn't puke. And I'm proud of both of those things because you need to learn from your mistakes.
That was going to be my next question. You puke?
A lot of people puke just doing a half gallon, you know.
Oh, wow. That's just a lot of ice cream.
It is.
Where are we right now?
We're in Kermit, Texas, the middle of nowhere. This is West Texas oil country, and not much going on here.
And I guess, why are we here?
Why are we here? I'm bicycling west from, my parents live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I'm bicycling west to the desert area of New Mexico, Arizona, to kind of spend some time in the winter and then start some hiking as it gets a little bit later on. But and then I guess you're here because you like to drive long distances to meet up with people.
Yeah, apparently I like to drive far.
You do.
I like road trips, but I'll be ready for this one to be over.
Yeah, once you've seen this part of Texas, I think you're good. You don't need to come back here.
Yeah,
sorry to all the people in Texas.
Well, this is my first time being in Texas or anywhere south, really. Like,
oh, okay.
Alabama, all that stuff. So just to see it for the first time, it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The recreational opportunities just aren't here for me, at least. You know, I mean, prefer things, you know, in the mountains and stuff, or on the coast. So.
Just to get it out of the way, I guess, could you list all of the kind of major trips that you've done? Hiking, paddling, bicycling. I know that might take a while.
It will, but if you want them, I know most of them, I guess. So
yeah, I'll probably just put all that stuff in text and just kind of like flash it on the screen and just like blow people's minds.
Yeah. Well, I started with bicycling in 1981 from a trip that was going to be originally just from Des Moines, Iowa to the East Coast, and along the way I enjoyed it so much I just kept going up the East Coast all the way up to Camden, Maine. And I guess in the back of my mind I always thought I'd like to go cross country on a bicycle, so I went across to Washington State at the coast there, and then down the West Coast and finished in Texas. So that started it all. And then everything's always linked up nicely since then, because when I was crossing over the Appalachian Trail in Smoky Mountain National Park at Newfound Gap, I hiked a little bit of the AT, like 200 yards of it, and thought, I'd like to do that someday. And so a year later, I was on the Appalachian Trail in 82, and that linked up with meeting a guy that was planning this bicycle trip to Alaska in 83. So I bicycled to Alaska to Key West, Florida in 83. And then, you know, once you've done the AT, you start thinking about the PCT. And so I did that in 84. But then I had a normal life for 7 years. And then 1992, I bailed out, basically sold everything I had, and took off to do the Continental Divide Trail. And that linked up with, when I got back from that, a relationship had gone bad. And I thought, well, it was fall and that was an ideal time to go to New Zealand. So I ended up going to New Zealand for 6 months, Australia for 6 months, and then back to the States. And then that ended up being by 84, or excuse me, by 1994, went over to Europe. I'd met a German girl in New Zealand. And so in 94, we bicycled from southwest Germany to North Cape, Norway, and then down to the Strait of Gibraltar in Spain. And then in 95, did a big cycling trip, starting in Texas and going up through all the national parks of the Rockies, and then out to the West Coast and up into Canada, and coming back around to Iowa. And then in 96, I started paddling as more of a long distance thing down the Rhine River in Europe in 96. And in 97, down the Danube River in Europe, and then did some hiking while I was there as well, and tried to mix up a lot of hiking and paddling on those European trips. And then in 98, I did the Klondike Gold Rush trip, if you will, starting at Skagway, Alaska, hiked over the Chilkoot Trail, and then paddled down the length of the Yukon River to the Bering Sea. And then that was 98. 99, went from the shore of Lake Superior at Grand Portage, Minnesota, following the old fur trade routes to as far as Fort Providence, Northwest Territory. And then from the Northwest, from that, ending that trip in September, from Fort Providence, went to the headwaters of the Mississippi River in the fall, and paddled down the Mississippi River the whole length to the Gulf. And then in 2000, went back to Fort Providence, Northwest Territory, and finished up the fur trade route by going down the Mackenzie River all the way to the Berings, to the Beaufort Sea, and then up the Rat River at the delta of the Mackenzie River, up the Rat River, up over the height of land at a place called Summit Lake, and then down the Little Bell, and Porcupine Rivers into Alaska onto the Yukon River, and then down the Yukon River to the Tanana River, and then up the Tanana River to Port Manly Hot Springs, that's the name. And I don't know, that was 2000. 2001 was another paddling trip, but I can't remember where right now. Oh no, it was hiking in Europe. Geez, yeah. 2001 was hiking in Europe. What they call European Walkway number 5, which goes from Venice, Italy to Pointe du Roi, France, and then across the English Channel, picked up the what they call the Land's End of John O'Groats trail, going from the southwest corner of England to the northeast corner of Scotland. And then that's 2001. 2002,
That's how you know you've done a lot.
No, it's like, shit, I was paddling in 2002. Oh, no, okay. So the German girlfriend I met in New Zealand, I'm doing these trips with her since 94, right? I didn't throw that in there, I guess. But yeah, and so she had always wanted to hike the Triple Crown of hiking in the United States. And so we did the Triple Crown starting with the Appalachian Trail in '02, and which was my 20th year anniversary of hiking it. And we did the Continental Divide Trail in '03, and then did the the Pacific Crest Trail in '04, which was my 20th anniversary of doing that trail as well. And we also picked up some minor stuff before we did the Continental Divide Trail southbound that year. We did the Ouachita Trail and the Ozark Highlands Trail before that started, just to kind of get in shape. We had broke up after the Pacific Crest Trail in '04, and so I needed to kind of clear my head and just get a different direction going. But I ended up hiking the Pacific Crest Trail again in '05, but going southbound. And then I had been planning for a few years to do the Lewis and Clark return trip. And so on the 23rd of March 2006, started at Fort Clatsop in Oregon and paddled the return trip, which was 200 years to the day of when they left. Paddled up the Columbia and Snake Rivers, and then over the height of land at Chief Joseph Pass in Montana, and then down into the Clark Canyon Reservoir, which the outlet of that is the Beaverhead River, which flows into the Jefferson River, which is one of the branches that forms the Missouri River at Three Forks, Montana. And then down the Missouri River all the way to St. Louis, arriving there on the 23rd of September, which was 200 years to the date of them arriving. But then I carried on down the Mississippi a ways to the mouth of the Ohio, up the Ohio, 50 some miles, and at Paducah, Kentucky, turned and went up the Tennessee River, all the way to the Little Tennessee River up near Knoxville, Tennessee, and then continued up the Little Tennessee River as much as I could, and then portaged over the height of land, which they call the Blue Ridge Divide, into the Savannah River drainage, and then down the Savannah River to Tybee Island, Georgia, going coast to coast that year on canoe. And that was in '06. '07 was '07 I hiked the Continental Divide Trail southbound, and then in 2008 I did a canoe trip called the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, which starts in Old Forge, New York, and goes to Fort Kent, Maine. And then I mailed the boat home and walked from Fort Kent, Maine down to Mount Katahdin in Maine, in Baxter State Park, to hike the Appalachian Trail southbound. That's 2008. 2009, just a second here. I got to think what 2009 was.
To keep track of. Amazing.
9, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Gosh. 9, 8. Okay. 10. No. 9, 10, 11, no. I gotta think about my years here.
That's all right if it's out of order.
Yeah, well, what the hell did I do in 9? Well, let's skip 9 then. Let's go to in 2011, I went over to Europe to hike the GR10 initially, which goes from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean in the Pyrenees. And then after that, I went down to the island of Corsica and hiked GR20. And then I went to Nice, France, and hiked GR5 northbound to Basel, Switzerland. And I came back on the 1st of October, and on the 2nd of October, I started from Cedar Rapids, Iowa in a cedar strip canoe I'd built many years before and that I'd been storing at my brother's barn, and started down the Cedar River to the Iowa River to the Mississippi River, and at Grafton, Illinois, where the Illinois River joins the Mississippi, I was then on to what they called the Great Loop, but I carried on down the Mississippi River to the Ohio River, up the Ohio River to the Tennessee again, and then shortly into the Tennessee turned off onto what's called the Tom Bigby Canal, down through the canal, and then down the Mobile River to Mobile, Alabama, and got in the intercoastal waterway around to Carabel, Florida, paddled the Big Bend area of Florida, and then down around Florida and up the East Coast all the way to New York City by way of intercoastal waterway or the Chesapeake Bay, up to Hudson River, up the Hudson River to the Erie Canal to, into Lake Erie, Lake Huron, up around the lower portion of Michigan, come back down around to Chicago and picked up the Chicago Sanitation and Shipping Canal, and then that eventually joins up with the Illinois River and then down the Illinois River to the Mississippi to complete that great loop, and then up the Mississippi River to the Des Moines River, and then up the Des Moines River to Ottumwa, Iowa, and that was the end of that trip. So that was 11, going into 12, 13. I got to think here again. Oh man, 13, 14. Because I got to work backwards. 17. Okay, 17. Oh, 13, 14. Am I going into too much detail, by the way?
That's all right.
Okay.
You're gonna help.
Well,
What I'm gonna do is just show a map and then draw some lines.
oh, okay.
All the routes that you're doing.
That's what I do. Everything in my head is lines on a map.
Yeah,
You know, whether
exactly.
it's cycling trips or whether it's hiking trips or paddling trips. I envision these things. It's, you know, just in the end becomes lines on the map. and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's kind of my thing too.
But I know in 2017, I did the Eastern Continental Trail, starting in Key West, Florida at midnight on New Year's Eve, and walked all the way up to Cape Gaspé, Quebec. And then that was 17 and 18. I did the PCT, no, excuse me, the CDT, but I did the Grand Enchantment Trail at the beginning of 2018. And then I did the Continental Divide Trail northbound in 18. Yeah. And then when I finished that, I went and did I screwed that up. That was 18. 2019, I did the Hayduke Trail, wonderful trail. See a great documentary on that by this guy named Alex, also known as Money Shot. Figure it out on the Hayduke Trail. And anyway, did the Hayduke Trail, then jumped over to the Pacific Crest Trail, did the Pacific Crest Trail northbound, and then after I finished that, went down and did the Arizona Trail southbound. I had previously done the Arizona Trail northbound in 2016. What did I do after the Arizona Trail in 16? I don't know this as well as I thought I did. Oh well.
And this could be something, if you think of it later too, you can just text it to me.
Yeah, well.
I'll probably show you the map and then just to make sure the routes are correct and everything.
Yeah, God, what did I do after the Arizona Trail in 16? I think that was the year I went back up to Canada paddle. Yeah, I went up to I'd been working on portions of what's called the Alexander Mackenzie Heritage Trail, and I did the west coast part from Bella Coola, BC. I hiked overland to Prince George, British Columbia, and then went up the Fraser River a little bit. Oh, this is in a canoe by this point, and then down the Peace River and into Lake Athabasca, and I hurt my shoulder and had to abandon my plans a little bit, but ended up going down the Slave River to Great Slave Lake and finishing that paddling trip in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. And then I went down to Montana at Great Falls, Montana, and got back into the Missouri and did the whole Missouri River down to the Mississippi. Went down the Mississippi all the way to the Old River, as they call it, and then down the Chafalai River. Dang. Now then I turned off the Chapelai River and came up the Red River and finished that trip in you were probably just there the other day. I can't think of the name of the town. Bossier City. What's the name of that town that's next to Bossier City?
I remember going through.
Yeah, it's Interstate 20 goes right through there.
Yeah.
Shreveport, Louisiana. I finished on Christmas Eve day. I finished that trip. I'm screwing this all up. Another time I paddled from Lake Mead. I did one lap around Lake Mead and then went down the Colorado River all the way to Yuma, Arizona. That was like in the spring of some year. And then another trip, in the winter of one year, I paddled from the tip of Florida to the tip of Texas. And I don't know, having a brain fart. I'm mixing them all up now. That's what's screwing me up now.
Yeah. That's no big deal throughout.
I went back to Europe at some point and did some more. Went over to Europe and did some some hiking again. I don't know. I paddled Lake Powell too one spring. That was a great trip. Starting in Page and went out for a whole month in Lake Powell and came back to Page, like going all the way around Lake Powell as much as I could, which is like the flooded Grand Canyon. And so it's like got 96 side channels you can paddle up to, and then when you run out of water you can walk up these little slot canyons, which is excellent. See, 2019, 2020, 2020, which was just last year. In 2020, I did the Sky Islands Traverse down in Arizona, then rode my bicycle up the Great Divide mountain bike route to Montana, then got on the Pacific Northwest Trail in Glacier National Park and walked out to the coast of the Olympic Peninsula. And then I took a train back to the bicycle in West Glacier and cycled my own route to Texas. And that was 2020. 2019, what did I do in 2019?
You say that was a Hayduke?
Yeah, 17, 18, 19 was another Triple Crown, yeah. And so that was, Hayduke was 19 and then the PCT, yeah, okay. Yeah, Grand Enchantment Trail. There's another trail down there. I did the Arizona Trail northbound in 2016. I'm trying to think what I did after that, though. Oh, I think in 2016, after the Arizona Trail, I went up with a friend to paddle from the headwaters of the Mississippi River down to the Minneapolis-St. Paul, Minnesota, and then I went and hiked the Superior Hiking Trail in the Arrowhead section of Minnesota in the summer, and then I got back in the canoe and went down to the Mississippi to the St. Croix River, went up the St. Croix River, over the height of land down into Lake Superior, and then paddled around to Grand Portage, Minnesota, because I was trying to tie in all of Lake Superior eventually, because then I didn't even get to that year. I think that was 2010. I started in Superior, Wisconsin, Duluth, Minnesota area, and I went on the north shore of Lake Superior, all the way through the locks at the Sioux at the east end of Lake Superior, into Lake Huron, down, up the French River, over a height of land to the Mattawa River, down the Mattawa River to the Ottawa River, to the St. Lawrence River, then picked up this Richelieu River off the St. Lawrence, went up the Richelieu River to Lake Champlain. I got to drink something. Could you just pitch me that? Thanks.
You can just keep it over there.
Oh, too much detail here again, I think. But okay, here we go. Off of the St. Lawrence River, went up the Richelieu River to Lake Champlain, and the Lake Champlain Canal will hook you up with the Hudson River, which will hook you up with the Erie Canal. Paddled the Erie Canal into Lake Erie, then went over a height of land at Chautauqua. I guess that's New York State, yeah. Down a couple of different rivers, the Condowago River, eventually ending up in the Allegheny River near Warren, Pennsylvania, and then followed the Allegheny River all the way to Pittsburgh, and then at Pittsburgh, that and the Monongahela River form the Ohio River, down the Ohio River to down the Ohio River all the way to the Mississippi River, down the Mississippi River all the way to the Gulf, I think. Now I forgot to tell you about the. Now I can't figure out what year it is. Did the Marquette and Joliet route, starting in Superior, Wisconsin, on the south shore of Lake Superior, around the east end of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, through the Straits of Mackinac, around the south side of the Upper Peninsula to Green Bay, Wisconsin, up the Apple River, and then at Portage, Wisconsin, portaged into the Wisconsin River and came down the Wisconsin River to the Mississippi River, down the Mississippi River to the Chaffalay River again in Mississippi, and then down the Chaffalay to the Intercoastal Waterway to over near, east of Houston, picked up the Trinity River and paddled that upstream to Dallas, Texas. And that was in the year 2000 and I don't know. Maybe that was 2009. I got them all screwed up.
That must have been the missing year then.
Maybe. Yeah, it's up to 8, then 9, 10. I don't know. Yeah, I'm still missing a couple of trips in there, I swear. It's like, hopefully I got 4 Triple Crowns in there.
Yeah.
With the whole map thing, I see maps with lines on them. The idea was to eventually have waterway routes that connect all the way from the Bofo Sea and the Bering Sea all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. And then from the Gulf of Mexico from one end of it to the other. And then on another trip was all the way up to the East Coast and connect that back around to the Mississippi. And and you know, plus the Lewis and Clark trip that brought the West Coast in. So from everything West Coast to East Coast and from the north of the continent to the south of the continent. It all hooks up by human power. I did all the portages by either carrying a boat on my shoulder or I had a cart on the Lewis and Clark trip. But the second time I did the Mississippi River, I had a portage cart, but also took a couple of rides around some of the dams. And on the Missouri River, the second time, I took rides around a few of the dams too. But I'm kind of proud of doing it all by human power on the first time around anyway. Okay, I think that's all of them. Now we go on to the third question. I probably made that way too long, I don't know. But I can't believe I screwed up. Man, I'll kill myself tonight for, yeah, I think it was 9, yeah, but whatever.
Well, that's what editing's for. I'll put that.
Yeah, sure. Now the sun's starting to get in my eyes. I don't know if that's good or bad.
I was
but
gonna say, do you want to get your hat or?
Well, I'm all right, but does it make me blink more or whatever? Or, I don't know. Or is it too much?
It's just kind of annoying for you if you're just like have to squint all the time.
Oh, we'll try it a bit longer, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I guess.
Does it
get a little bit dimmer as it kind of goes down the other horizon?
Okay. Maybe I'll. No, that doesn't work.
And if it's like too bright or anything, we can just go around to the other side of the tree or something.
Have this lovely backdrop.
Yeah.
I don't know what you have here. I guess you got houses that way too, maybe.
Yeah, this is all right.
Okay.
I'm getting the trash out of the shop.
Yeah, I noticed something blew through here like a candy wrapper or something. I was like, I hope the camera didn't get that.
Yeah. You can always edit around those things.
Yeah.
Are you the only person to do the triple crown?
I guess so, but you know, it's not that so important to me. There's another guy named Let It Be or Name It Basilic that's either probably done it by now or isn't too far behind, you know, and it's like, I just love hiking. That's what, you know, I don't do it for being the first or the fastest or anything, so I just love to hike.
And then the last question about this stats and stuff is just, do you know how many miles you've traveled? Like,
I know it's over 50,000 miles now. I reached that point a couple of years ago and haven't been keeping good track since, but yeah, it's over 50,000 and that's a monumental goal, I guess, you know, and I'm trying to get the paddling mileage up to that. I think I'm at 44,200 miles of paddling, and I'll get it there. A couple more paddle trips. I've got one planned in Canada if Canada will ever open up, that doesn't look like this year, so yeah.
Yeah, I asked Nibble Will that question. He's like, I'm disappointed in you. Because I asked him how many miles that he's done.
Yeah.
He's like, usually that's the first question.
Oh, okay.
Like third or fourth or whatever.
Yeah, you do hear it a lot. I don't know if you know this guy Billy Goat, or yeah, he and I met for the first time in 04 on the PCT, and we were kind of like both reaching the 25,000 mile at the same time, and the circumference of the Earth at the equator is 24,902 miles, and so we were calling that mileage, you know, one lap around the planet. And he and I have both gone on to do a second lap around the planet. And so, I don't know, it's just a fun thing to keep track of from time to time, but I don't keep that accurate of a count actually, but basically I know the mileage, yeah. I don't.
Yeah, that's hard to even comprehend.
Well, and then sometimes you do like a day hike or something. Do you count that? I was like, normally I only count stuff with the backpack on, so it's more like when I'm in long distance mode, so I don't know.
I'm going to try and talk to Billy Goat too.
Okay.
Will just gave me his phone number.
Yeah, he has his birthday every year at the end of January down in Florida. And then he goes up to see Nimblewell right afterwards. Up there on Flag Mountain, stays a day or two, I think, and then he kind of bases himself out of New York State somewhere, I think now.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to save that for after the hike too.
Yeah, he gives a good interview, I would guess. Yeah, I don't know. He and Nimblewell are both very spiritual too, it's like...
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I didn't know if you wanted to go into that on this interview or not, but I'm like agnostic, so it's like but spiritual doesn't necessarily have to mean, like a relationship with God type of thing. But yeah, we'll probably get to that, but, spirit... Sorry, beat your dead cat. Yeah, spirit, spirit's more like what's burning inside, in my viewpoint, yeah.
Okay, well let's get into that now, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So like, what do you think the human spirit is? What do you kind of picture that to be?
Like I said, it's not a relationship with God with me because I'm agnostic, and so I think it's just that burning desire inside, and to tie in with the body as being fit and trim and ready to go, and your mind too, is being fit and ready to go, and the three of those together, form what is the essence of your own personal life and how you view that you should probably live it, and to me that's outside, doing these long distance trips, but that's not for everybody, but it certainly works for me, and it's what I continue to do, into the foreseeable future, I guess. I don't know.
Could you say how doing these trips has kind of got you more in touch with that, or has it?
Well, now that I'm on the first week of this bicycle trip, I'm probably in the worst shape I've been in ever starting a trip. But once you get through that first 2 weeks and everything starts hitting on all cylinders and stuff, it's like what I call perpetual energy. The longer you stay out doing it, the more energy you get from it. That may be where your mind enters into it, where it's like, man, you just can't wait to get up in the morning and start hiking, or you can't wait to get up in the morning and push that boat off the shore and start paddling, It's like, it just could go all day, and then you realize, yeah, you're physically exhausted at the end of the day, but it feels good, and that's probably what they'd refer to as the runner's high or something, that endorphamine thing, and not that you have to push it at an aerobic level all day by any means, but it just feels good, like, man, it's a sense of accomplishment for that day, and I lay down, I go to sleep almost immediately. It's like on the Pacific Northwest Trail, for example, that we both share, and there's a lot of 3,000 and 4,000 foot climbs in there, and 3 and 4 miles, and that's a lot of steep up. And it's like, yeah, I can still do this, and it's like you sweat like crazy and your calves are burning, but yeah, it's like, yeah, it's an accomplishment when you get to the top, just, I don't know, it just feels good.
Do you think you were kind of in touch with the human spirit, or kind of what you see out there before you got into these adventures, like when you're kind of doing the normal life? Like, how did that change for you, or did that change the way you look at things?
Well, I was in a career that was at a burnout pace in the early 80s in the telephone industry, and it was, the telephone industry, I guess, has been booming that entire time, but just, working 50 and 60 hours a week all the time, and needed to get away from it, and so I started that in '79. That's why I bailed out a little bit in '81 to do the first long trip. But I was looking for something different and didn't see myself, working at one spot for the next, 45 years to retirement type of thing. I knew there was something else I needed and wanted, and so, it's always a leap of faith, It's like, well, is this going to be something I like or not? You don't know until you try it, and I was born with a bit of rude strength, I guess, and a fairly durable body, and it's not let me down. And I don't know, if it gets too much, I just go to sleep.
What was the process in your mind to go from doing that telephone job to actually getting out on your first trip? I mean, it must have been like kind of an overwhelming thing.
Well, it started in 1980. Well, I call it my, I don't know if some people like this reference or whatever, but it's like when you were born again. That was on August 19th, 1979. I bought my first decent bicycle, if you will, like a 10-speed Schwinn. And I had to start a job the next day and didn't have transportation to get there. And so I bought this bicycle and immediately fell in love with it. You know, it's like, it felt very efficient, which is something I've always loved about the bicycle, the mechanical advantages it has. And that led to a lot of bicycle commuting to work, and then doing weekend rides and stuff with a club in Des Moines, Iowa. And but they have a cross the state ride in Iowa called RAGBRAI for short. It's the Registrant's Annual Great Bike Ride Across Iowa. And I did that in 1980. And so I took a week vacation to do that. And I thought, this is really cool. I don't have to go home at night. And so I did that week cross state ride and was starting to plan a bicycle trip in the spring of '81. And so it's just something I knew I wanted to do. You know, it's like I've always, I guess, been a nomad, or you know, had an adventuresome spirit, you know. And yeah, and then like I said, everything after that's just linked up wonderfully. But yeah, it's always difficult to take that first step. You know, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And I don't know who said it, and I screwed it up by saying it probably, but I can remember repeating those words when I took my first step to do the Appalachian Trail the next year. You know, it's like I got out of the car of a shuttle service in Amalacola Falls State Park in Georgia and went up the approach trail as a flatlander. I just went tearing up that approach trail in heavy leather boots and a big old Kelty backpack, you know, like, bring it on, you know. It's like by the time I got to the top of Springer Mountain, which is the start of the trail, my both heels had like quarter-sized blisters on them. It's like, but I had taken a bus for 33 hours to get down to Dahlonega, Georgia, and I'll never get on another Greyhound bus again, I thought to myself. So it's like, I got to make this work. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I've done a couple of those long Greyhound bus trips.
Yeah, Greyhound sucks. Hi, Greyhound, you suck. Quote me on that anytime you want. You know, worst customer service on the planet. I don't even know how they stay in business.
Yeah, it's never a good time.
No. Oh. Is that all right if I put my feet out like that?
Yeah, good. Did you always have an interest in the outdoors and doing trips and stuff like that your whole life, or did you kind of discover that later in life?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, back when I was a youth, kids played outside a lot more than probably they do now or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed being outside doing things. And, you know, I was in Boy Scouts and that type of thing. But we didn't do too much hiking in Iowa. And, well, I did a little bit of paddling, you know, and then... yeah, I got into the outdoors more, I guess, as a, you know, as an adult. And during my first couple of years of work, I took a couple of trips to the Boundary Waters canoe area in northern Minnesota to do week-long paddle trips. And so that always, you know, whetted my appetite for paddling. And then, yeah, I've always liked being outside. Some people, they look at camping as like some sort of drudgery or whatever. It's like, it can be, I guess, when it's rainy and the ground's all lumpy and stuff. But I count my nights out by human power as like my main emphasis on life. You know, it's like, and I'm over 2,500, or excuse me, 2,000. I'm over 7,500 nights now of out camping, and I rarely stay in hostels. Or other accommodations. I've only stayed in a motel room, I think, 3 or 4 nights, you know. I just like to camp, you know, it's just my gig, you know. It's like, I don't know. I don't look at it as a discomfort at all. I guess if I did, I wouldn't do it. I don't know.
What do you think that is that a lot of people are kind of scared of it, or they think it's a think that sucks? Or
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I suppose, people are used to growing up, with taking a shower every night and sleeping on clean sheets, which I certainly appreciate when I have that opportunity. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't think it's that necessary. I mean, I think, doing your laundry all the time and taking showers all the time is, a little overrated, amongst even long distance hikers, but, I don't necessarily feel that dirty. I mean, maybe desert hiking you feel a little bit more dirty just because of lack of water, but paddling trips, you always got the water to jump into, granted some of that water, I remember what I did in 2009. How could I forget this? 2009, Alaska and I turned 50. And so I paddled from Olympia, Washington to Skagway, Alaska. And then I paddled down Lynn Canal over to Glacier Bay, and then paddled over to Juneau and took the ferry boat southbound. But then I think that's when I did a little bit of the Pacific Northwest Trail in 2009. I think that's right.
filling in the gaps.
Filling in the gaps, and it all, because on the map it all has to tie together. Because I'd done that other paddle trip from over the Chilkoot Trail, starting in Skagway, down the Yukon, and then so I had to get from Olympia. Then in in the fall of 2019, the fall of 2019, after the Pacific Crest Trail, I then went over to Seattle to visit some friends, and I took the bus down to Olympia and walked from Olympia, which was the starting point of the 2009 paddle trip, walked from Olympia, Washington to Astoria, Oregon, because that's the start of my Lewis and Clark trip, to link that up. Because I'm always trying to link everything up. By human power, that's the way to go. It's that KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. It's like the best way to go. Nothing breaks to speak of, in a canoe or when hiking. A bicycle, of course, you got to keep air in the tires, and a chain moving. I don't know. But how did I get off on that? I don't know. It's something that popped into my mind. Oh yeah, I walked from Olympia down to Astoria to tie that little bit together. Yeah. One of these days I'm gonna link up the Columbia River up to my route coming. Oh shit, that's a trip I forgot about. Yeah, one year I started in Rocky Mountain. I don't know what year this was now. Must have been 2006. No, not 6, 7, 8, 9. 2009. No, that was 2010. What year was that? Well, one year I started in Rocky Mountain House, Alberta, and paddled down the Saskatchewan River all the way to, paddled all the way down the Saskatchewan River to Lake Manitoba, and then around to the south end of Lake Manitoba, and went up the Red River, over a height of land, up the Red River into the United States, all the way to its headwaters, and then over the height of land on the Minnesota, it's either the South Dakota, North Dakota border, and down the Minnesota River to the Mississippi. I screwed up that. That's the year I went up to St. Croix. I don't know. And then into Lake Michigan, or Lake Superior. Yeah. How did I tell you I got there earlier? Oh, I think I said I started at the headwaters. I'm trying to think where that year I came down with that girl to Minneapolis. I got back in the boat. I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to email it to you. It's okay if I sit like this? Or? Okay.
I'll make a map of what you've told me so far.
Well, actually, that's the problem with switching phones. I had a map of like all my water trips on that phone, but I don't have the pictures. It was like a picture of a map. I don't have that picture readily available to me right now, I guess, that I could send it to you.
I haven't heard of the KISS principle before. I like that.
Oh, well, it's not mine, but yeah, keep it simple, stupid. That's what I live by, man. I think it's more politically correct or whatever it's supposed to be. Keep it simple and sensible. But hey, stupid might get your attention better, so that works too.
So how do you see that principle not being applied in kind of normal society? Like
all the time. I mean, yeah. People won't walk across the road anymore to go do something, you know, they have to drive or whatever, you know. The overuse of the automobile in America is pathetic, but that's a whole other, maybe you should put this in the film. I haven't had a car in 30 years and kind of proud of that, I guess. I mean, but I just like getting around by human power. I mean, as I get older, maybe I'll have to, you know, and I even talk about buying a van and living in a van, but I don't know if I'm old or not yet. So, yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 61, yeah. And trying to think what I did on my 60th birthday is just last year. No, that's 61, yeah. What did I do on my 60th birthday? I made a big deal out of going to Alaska on my 50th birthday because it and I turned 50 the same year. It became a state in that year I was born, yeah. My parents brought me, I was born in late August. My parents brought me home from the hospital in a blanket in late August, sweating. And I think I've been sweating every day since. It's like, story of my life. I don't mind sweating. Some people don't like to sweat, but I don't know. That was in high school as a wrestler, and you know, that's all about sweating, you know. I mean, we used to cut weight back in that era. And it's terrible because you're just dehydrating your body. But yeah, I'd lose 8 pounds in one wrestling practice, you know, type thing. You know, but that's a whole nother story. That gets in my that would get into my eating disorders. Like wrestlers starve themselves, right? And then they binge eat right after weigh-in, you know, because we weighed in the morning. Now they don't. Were you into wrestling at all, or yeah? But now, they've changed that because people were dying from cutting weight, you know. And it's sad to say, but and I'm taking up way too much time of your film here, but yeah. Then I get into hiking, it's like, Jesus, it's about like wrestling, man. There's not enough food to eat usually. You leave town with 6 days worth of food, and you could sit down on the third day out and eat it all, or second day out and eat it all. It's just, you know, it's like, how did I get into hiking? Oh well.
Yeah, I know I've had that thought. Like, into a section, I'm looking at my food, I'm like, I can finish all of it.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, God. And you lay down next to your food at night. You're not supposed to do that, kids. You're supposed to hang it in a tree. You lay down to your food and you're like looking at that peanut butter jar. Maybe just a little bit more, you know. I don't know.
It teaches a little bit of, like, mental discipline, just having to...
Yeah, but it's one I don't, it's like, I used to tell that, I had this German girlfriend for 12 years. I didn't quite fill all that in, I guess, but from 94 until 92 to 04. But at any rate, I used to tell her it builds character. She always said, I've got enough character now. It's like, that's what I am with this food thing, man. I've, you know, gone without too many times or whatever, but oh well. It's part of it. Then you get to eat pizza and beer in town.
Yeah, so how does that kind of change your perspective on like having stuff, like when you're out on the trail, you have very little food, and you're always like, you have to ration and be very careful.
It makes you greatly appreciate, like I said, with the shower and the clean sheets and the same, well, for me, more so the food when you get to town. But the bad thing is you're not eating probably the proper foods and eating too much of one thing and then moving on to a total different food group, you know, like, oh well. Then you leave town with a upset stomach. I don't know. I don't know if any of that's good or not. What am I supposed to, I'm supposed to be saying severe and profound things, I guess, to be on a film.
Well, I just wanted to hear your experience, basically.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I eat all kinds of crap when I get to town. Bicycling, you know, like I said, it's a little bit lean going out of here, but bicycling, basically being in town every day, you know, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, West Texas and Alaska, it's a little different, but maybe parts of New Mexico, I don't know, but yeah. Go ahead.
Bicycling feel easier?
Well, bicycling, like I said, I like with bicycling, I like that feeling of the mechanical advantage you have, you know, and the bicycle is considered the most efficient machine ever developed. And there's some famous, I don't know if it's a quote or just a written statement about the bicycle, how calorie efficient it is, you know, like the calories that are in gasoline, you know, versus the calories that you burn as a human powered thing is, it's astronomical how much efficient or how efficient the bicycle is. It's like you could, you know, it'd be the equivalent of getting like 7,000 miles to the gallon of gas. I don't know. You'll have to look that up if you want to try and fit that into your film, I guess, because I'm screwing it all up.
That's interesting. I've never heard that.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the quote, or it's not really a quote. There's two things I'm actually referring to, I guess, but one's how when they invented the bicycle, they should have stopped inventing things, you know, because it was the most efficient thing they ever had it engineered or whatever. And then the other thing is, if you'd have to Google it, I guess, like if a person, how many miles per gallon could a person get burning the same amount of calories? Because I think calories is some sort of measurement of energy. Like when you burn gasoline, it puts off so many calories or something, versus the human doing it. And it's a lot. I mean, it's like 700 miles to the gallon, I think. I don't know. It's some huge amount. But and then bicycle, who doesn't get on a bicycle and smile? I mean, it just makes you happy, you know. It's like, I don't know, like, I like bicycling, you know, so to do my errands, I bicycle, you know, when I'm stationary for a while, you know. I don't know.
Do you prefer any one of these three things over the other?
Well, hiking for sure is the most simplistic, you know. It's just you and your feet and walking down the trail. You've been doing that since you're 1 year old, you know, walking. And yeah, you're carrying a backpack with hopefully very little in it and lightweight, and, you know, makes you feel good. And like I said earlier, there's very few things that can break, you know, when you're just walking. Paddling I love, because once land ends, it's nice to be able to go across water. And that's, you know, in a canoe, I prefer canoeing over kayak, but I've done a lot of both. But pushing off from the shore in a fully loaded canoe, it just has that, you know, sense of freedom or something, you know. And it's like, you know, I smile every time I do it. You know, it's like maybe, you know, it's 3 a.m. you're loading up the boat on Lake Superior so you can get out on the big water, you know, because you're usually camped back in some cove or something. Be out on the big water by 4 in the morning, and hopefully you can paddle till, you know, noon or 1 o'clock before the wind blows you off of it. You know, that's just the way life is, but you got to get up early, but then you get a lot of afternoon naps in, so.
Those are nice.
Yeah. Oh.
So do you think that freedom is kind of what motivates you to get out here, or like what's your major goal?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's you know, a well-worn statement about this whole traveling thing, just loving the freedom of it, you know. And yeah, I never saw myself as a family person or whatever, you know, so I'm free of those types of obligations. And yeah, I generally like to go about 200 days a year or so. A couple of times I've gone year round, or, you know, like a year and a half, you know, but about, you know, 8 to 10 months is a good year for me of out traveling. And it's my life, you know, it's my home, you know, and I have this small place in Iowa. It's a 12 by 16 foot cabin that I call home, I guess. I mean, but it's more or less a place where I store stuff.
Yeah. So most of the people that I'm interviewing, I'm kind of talking about their regular life, which is like work and society and stuff, and then sometimes they go into nature. But it kind of seems like with you, this is regular life.
This is regular life for me. And I love it, and I want to look back, you know, as I get older, and not have any regrets, or very few regrets, I guess. And yeah, I put myself in a position financially, you know, which is important to be doing these types of things year after year. And, you know, you make sacrifices. I mean, I was working so much I didn't have time to spend the money, you know, and then I invested fairly well. And I mean, I'm not a rich man by any means. I mean, that's such a subjective thing anyway. I mean, but it's one of those things. I don't call it sacrifices by any means, but like I say, I prefer to camp rather than stay in a motel, you know. And human power is, the way I see myself doing it anyway, is very affordable. I mean, when I started out maybe $5 a day type of thing, and now up to maybe $10 a day, I suppose. I don't know. Very little money, you know. Like, and sometimes I refer to the motel thing as, you know, like one night in a motel is, let's say, 5 days of travel, and I would just soon have that 5 extra days of travel or whatever than staying in a motel, you know. So that's just me, though. I mean, I know a lot of people like the motel thing, and yeah, it's just not what I do. I never end up sleeping in a motel anyway. I'm too wound up or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I mean, some people, you know, they running down the trail to get to the motels, you know. It's like, then they bitch about it afterwards. They get out back on the trail. Like, damn, that was a $120 a night room. It is like sucked, you know, because they put 5 people in there in sweaty, stinky clothes and bodies, and someone farting and sneezing and belching all night. I don't know. I hope that doesn't end up in the film. Oh, these are 1 gallons of steak. A room full of sweaty hikers in a room belching and farting and sweating. I don't know.
Well, I sure appreciate it when I do get a motel, but I can understand, like, you kind of feel like you're not in nature anymore.
Well, that's true, and
it kind of makes you anxious.
Well, and then like when I first did the long bike trip in 1981, I always thought it would be like cheating if I stayed in a motel, you know. So I never did, and I put up with a lot of rainy nights because I was out eastern side of the United States quite a bit that year, and which the weather's a little bit more unstable out that way, I think. But yeah, I always thought I'd be cheating myself if I stayed in motels. And then, you know, and like when I did the AT in '82, you know, this is everybody had the big heavy packs, and you know, if you showed up with a little tiny pack, they'd probably laugh you off the trail, you know. And if you're going to stay in a motel, what a wimp, you know. It's like, I mean, there was a few hostels along the trail back then, but it's nothing like it is now. I mean, there's tons of, I don't know, hostels or bed and breakfast or Airbnbs. You can stay in one almost every other night, it seems like, on the AT. And that's just not my gig. I'd rather be outside, so.
Has the attitude changed about that a lot since the 80s?
Oh, certainly. I mean, and I love that I can look back over 40 years now and see how things have evolved, you know, in the long distance hiking community, or, well, I guess you can't really have so much of a long distance paddling or cycling community, but in the long distance hiking community, things have definitely evolved, you know, to when I showed up on the Appalachian Trail 20 years after I'd done it the first time, I'd never even heard of the term trail magic. And there had been some in '82, don't get me wrong, but now everybody almost expects a cooler at every road crossing on the AT, or to be pampered here and there, you know. And I understand that former hikers want to give back and stuff, and that's great. I usually don't turn down the trail magic. You know, nice cold Coke on a hot day or whatever is nice, you know. And but it's definitely evolved, you know. I mean, and I like that I've had both experiences, you know, of seeing it, what it used to be like versus what it is now, and that would get into the whole how crowded the trails have gotten, you know. Like when I did the PCT in 1984, there was, I think, probably a dozen people that finished the whole thing that year. And then, you know, I was just on it in 2019. I don't know, I think they say a couple thousand, you know, maybe 3,000 or 4,000, you know, which boggles my mind. I mean, it's wonderful that people are getting out to experience these things, don't get me wrong. And when I did it in 1984, that was kind of a turning point in my life. I was kind of to the point where, wow, I'd like to do more of this, you know, because the scenery out west just blew me away, you know. It's like, so that's why I worked for 7 years very hard, so I could put myself in a position to go do more of this starting in '92, and haven't looked back.
Yeah, I'm sure people ask you that a lot, like how do you afford?
Oh yeah, the financial thing is often, you know, I don't necessarily look at it as a source of pride, but you know, yeah, I'm a dirtbag hiker. You know, I mean, that's like, I do dirtbag laundry. You know, I'll wash out my hat or my buff or whatever in the sink of a gas station or wherever, you know, and not thinking, you know, people nowadays don't carry any clothes. I mean, and everything's nylon. You can rinse it all out and wash it and put it on and walk away, and it's dry in 5 minutes. So, you know, yeah, I don't know, dirtbag laundry and camping's all, I look at it, camping as should always be free in my opinion, but so bicycle touring is a little bit different. But once you're out west onto the Forest Service land or BLM land, it's totally legal. You know, I mean, I camped in the odd city park here and there, and you know, probably a few cow pastures and more than I probably should have that, you know, was private or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Hiking is very easy to camp for free every night. Well, granted, some of the national parks charge for that, like Grand Canyon. The Hayduke Trail's a pain in the ass. You plan the whole trip about when you can get that Grand Canyon permit. Then you can work the start date, you know, and your flight to get there. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's how you did it or that's how it worked for me.
I got lucky. By the time I was starting to plan the Hayduke, it was already too late to apply for a Grand Canyon permit. So I figured that out. Like, well, shit, I guess I'll just hope I get lucky.
Okay.
When the sun comes around.
Yeah.
And so I met up with a guy who had a permit, and he was able to, like, call in and get me added onto his.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So that worked out pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
I definitely got lucky with that.
Hopefully I didn't disconnect anything here. That was poking me in the leg.
Was it hard for you to kind of reconcile, like, not being a family man? Was that something that you've always felt, or?
Oh, yeah, I've always felt that family life wasn't for me. And I've got 3 siblings, and they all have a family of like 2 children each and stuff. And I guess my parents wanted me to follow that line of thinking as well. But yeah, it didn't fit for me. I mean, yeah, I don't think I've ever thought of having a family. Just something I knew. And I don't have any regrets. I got 6 wonderful nieces and nephews, you know, and so, yeah, I can be a good uncle, I hope, to them, you know, so, yeah. And now that they're starting to have children, I'm a great uncle. Then when they're acting up, they go home. That's what grandparents always say or whatever. Go away.
That's what I like about my friend's dogs.
Yes,
For a while, and then they go home.
I've had dogs in the past. I love dogs. I'd like to have one, but it just doesn't fit my lifestyle, you know. But it's like anytime you're willing to go for a walk, someone will lend you their dog. Take my dog for a walk. Where my folks live, it's like some older people, you know, that can't really walk their dog very far. It's like, that wasn't a very long walk. I'll take it for a 5-mile walk. Whatever. That should
Yeah,
be.
you'll make the dog tired, actually.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, man, I only wanted to go a block and get back in on the couch.
Yeah.
That probably has nothing to do with your film, but yeah. How to take care of dogs instead of kids.
Did you ever feel like judged, or like that would be kind of hard to fit in,
Oh,
having that sort of those priorities?
I guess people want you to, you know, have a responsible life, and I don't know, but I've never really let it bother me, I guess, you know. I mean, I've got this vision, I guess, you know, of like what I think I want to be doing, and kind of try to do what I can to put myself in a position to do that, you know. So I guess I don't care if people think I should be working 40 years or 50 years. I'm past that point now, but at one point I remember saying, I think I'll go back to work. When I bailed out in '92, I thought maybe I'll go back to work when I'm 65. And I've still got a few more years before that's up, but I don't know. I kind of like just traveling, so.
Yeah, it seems like you can make it happen.
I certainly think I can, yeah. I hope so. Unless I take up, like flying or yachting or something, Although I would love to live on a sailboat. And there's ways to do that dirt cheap, though, too, living on the hook, as they call it, as opposed to having your boat in a marina or whatever. And so, but yeah, I don't know. So right now I like a boat that I can pick up, and put on shore when the wind comes up. Yeah. Great. That's one of those things about being, keeping it simple too. A canoe or kayak can go into what they call the thin water, like 4-inch deep water, down in the Florida panhandle. You don't want to have a keel that goes very deep. Yeah.
Definitely.
And well, I'm telling you, I've looked at sailboats out there in rough bays even, and stuff, just rocking all night. It's like, man, I'm glad I'm on shore. Of course, then I'm worried about trees falling on me or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, do you ever get into like rough weather on your canoe?
Oh, always. Yeah, canoeing's all about, knowing when to get off the water, It's like kind of like that Sunday night syndrome when you have to be back at work on Monday morning. People push it, and that's when they get into trouble, So, yeah. But normally I'm an early riser, and I'll get off the water, hopefully before it gets too rough, because you got to be able to get yourself and the boat onto shore without, damaging yourself or the boat, So it's a judgment thing, but you learn. Usually the hard way. Like, damn, I wished I would have got off this a half hour sooner.
Yeah, that's something that happens just with hiking and all these things, and generally you tend to learn the hard way.
Yeah. I mean,
There's
and
an
it's
advantage to that.
yeah, it's good that that's there. It's like, okay, I screwed up, there, but yeah, try to correct it the next time.
It does make you learn, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had some friends who kayaked around Lake Superior.
Oh, okay.
I know they got stuck in these storms.
No, that's a tough one and that water's deadly cold. I mean, it's like when I say I like to go swimming almost every day, whether I'm always when I'm paddling, but even when I'm hiking, I try to get in the water. But if I'm swimming, I mean like full body submersion, and that's about all you can do on Lake Superior or the Inside Passage is get in and get out. I gotta take a sip.
Yeah, it's a shock to the system, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's deadly cold.
Think you could summarize some life lessons that these adventures have taught you?
Life lessons. Oh boy. First of all, do it. I mean, if you're always waiting for everything to line up perfectly, it might not happen. So yeah, you've got to put some money aside and take that step. Doing it. Yeah, that'd be one life lesson, to get out there and do it. Pause, cut. Can I say something else severe and profound?
Yeah.
As I look to see if my bicycle's still there.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye out.
Oh, thanks. Is my helmet still there?
Yeah.
It's a white thing on the ground? Because it doesn't weigh much to worry about it.
Oh, yeah.
If you push a bicycle on grass in West Texas, you get thorns in it like that. And I've done it before. Talk about life lessons. Don't push your bike across the grass in Texas. You'll get thorns. 2 of them at a time, 2 flats, whatever. Front and rear tire both will be flat. Yeah.
That sounds like learning the hard way.
Yeah, I pick it up and carry it. I'm glad I'm still physically able to carry my bike across ground or whatever. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point about not waiting for things to be perfect, because that's something that I think I had a tendency to do. Like I always wanted the things to be like just right,
Yeah.
and always trying to make things perfect and just how I imagined it. And hiking kind of taught me like that just doesn't happen, and you're
Yeah.
not going to get anything done if you.
And we all probably think that, but yeah. And, as far as a life lesson on the time, because it's always a trade-off for time or money, it's like, yeah, I can be making money, but I just soon have the time to go do some trips. But, if people say, oh, you've got the time to do it, you have to make the time no matter what situation you're in. I mean, I still struggle with that. It's like, oh, I need to, do this and this before I can get the time to do that, And yeah, I mean, maybe I'm in a bit of a different situation now, but yeah, it's like, okay, I had to quit my job in 81, you know, but I came back and 6 months later and got the same job back because the telephone industry was booming, you know, the same in 92, or excuse me, that was in 81 and 82 and 83 and 84. All 4 of those I came back and went right back to work because I had the skills, you know, to go to work making the company money right from the get-go, you know, and you know, and I've always a hard worker. You know, I've got that Midwest work ethic, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Did I answer that question? I don't know.
Do you feel lucky that you're able to do this, or do you think that this is something that you kind of manifested through your hard work and through planning and all that stuff?
Lucky, I guess you could consider. I think I'm lucky to be able to do this. Fortunate or whatever, and then, you know, maybe again, you know, I've got a certain rude strength and durable enough body that it's withheld over all these years, you know, and that's not, you know, some people just aren't born that way or whatever. They, you know, like they got bad knees or ankles to no fault of their own, you know, and yeah, I feel fortunate. Yeah, luck, fortunate. I don't know. Yeah.
Have you ever had any health problems, physical health problems that this stuff has kind of helped with?
I've only twice had issues come up while traveling. I either got West Nile virus or heat exhaustion going up the St. Croix River one year, which I started running a fever, you know, and for about 4 days I was in pretty bad shape, but just rested and was able to carry on. And then when I was tracking my boat, which is like with a bow and stern line from shore, working it up the Fraser River, I slipped on the bank and fell full force on my left shoulder, and I guess just stretched some ligaments in it, but it made me change my plans for that trip because I had some pretty ambitious plans of going up a river after I'd gone down the Peace River, and had to kind of change those plans, and that took a long time to kind of heal, and I've since injured it a couple other times. So you lose a little bit of confidence, I guess, you know, but I'm anxious to do a paddling trip. I just kind of waiting for Canada to open. Because I really would like to test this shoulder, you know, to make sure it's got, you know, what it takes, you know. Granted, there's probably some easier trips I could do, but
that's how you test it out.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like anybody can go downstream. I like going upstream too, you know, kind of maybe, as they say, separates the men from the boys or whatever, you know. But, you know, going upstream brings a certain amount of sense of accomplishment, man, because you either track the boat or you push the boat, or, you know, grab brush on the side of the bank or whatever. But yeah, you can do it. It's a lot of work sometimes, but
yeah, I've got to be honest, it doesn't sound fun to me.
Well, I have given up one. The only time I really ever gave up on a trip was going up after I'd gone up the Columbia River and Snake River into the Clearwater River. I was trying to get myself in position to go over Lolo Pass, and I was trying to go up the Clearwater River, and it was just too fast, and the water was too high, and yeah, I couldn't. I was trying to pole it some, and I was trying to brush pole, and I just like, I wasn't making any headway, and I thought, yeah, I wasn't going to get that far, so I kind of turned around, went back to Lewiston, Idaho, yeah, and decided to go overland from there. Something was going on in New York City, and I think they had some tall ships or something there, and I had to go way out around them for security reasons. And the Coast Guard's standing there with these, you know, rigid inflatable boats with machine guns mounted on the front, going, you need to go out further. I'm in the current, man. I'm not like making any progress here. It's like I'm missing my tide window, you know. It's like, this is not fun. Can't you see I'm not going anywhere? I had to go back to shore and wait for a few hours, you know, to where the tide helped me more, you know.
That sounds stressful.
Oh man, I tell you, and I'm in New York City, you know, it's like, that was my first time in New York City. It's like, you know, I don't do big cities well, you know, and so it's like, man, I've always had a fear of cities, you know, and it's like, get me out of here. But I actually loved it, you know, it's an easy city to navigate. And once I stayed there a couple of nights, but yeah, and I've since gone back, you know, I have some friends that live in Brooklyn and that, so.
So how do you feel when you go into a city?
I just want to get out of it. That's how I feel when I get. Or I always work my way to some water's edge. You know, I shouldn't say all the major cities. Most of the major cities in North America are on some sort of body of water, whether it's an ocean or a major river. I think it's like Dallas and Denver and Phoenix and I don't know, there's probably a few more that are the only ones that aren't on a navigable body of water, you know. But I either have to get out of the city or I have to get to the water's edge, and then I feel like I've got some space or something, you know. And preferably if I'm getting to the water's edge, I have a boat there. You know, then I can get my boat. As I like to tell people, is like, every idiot's got a car, you know, only 10% of idiots have boats. So it's like, you got to worry about idiots when you're bicycling, you know, because everybody idiot has a car. But when you're boating, only about 10% have boats. I don't know, it could be wrong.
Probably less than 10%.
There's a certain a conflict between boaters, though, too. You know, the bass fishermen are the worst. Hope you're not a bass fisherman.
What is it about bass fishing?
Oh, tournament bass fishers.
Oh.
Man, they got those boats that go 70 miles an hour, and they're just trying to get to their little fishing hole. They'll fish there for 5 minutes and move on at 70 miles an hour. Nothing personally against them. It's just that, you know, it's like an attitude thing. It's like, why don't you just enjoy the day? But they're in a tournament and they want to win because there's a lot of money involved nowadays.
Yeah, they've got super nice boats.
Yeah, powerful boats. Yeah. I've seen them, putting them through their paces, you know, and stuff. It's like, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call them run-ins, but interesting encounters with fly fishermen, like in the Beaverhead River. The Beaverhead River's not very wide, and they're standing right in the middle, casting both ways. It's like, hey, canoe coming down, you know. And,
They don't like stop or anything.
well, and some of them aren't real good at it yet either, you know, so they don't know where the hook's going to go themselves, you know. It's like, I almost got hooked a couple of times, I think, on the Beaverhead or Jefferson rivers, you know. But that's, you know, and I think on the Missouri River, there's some of that too, the upper ends of the Missouri, you know. But it's a wider river then, but yeah, I don't know.
That'd just be a good story.
I'm always amazed at fly fishermen, man. They'll spend any amount of money to go fishing. I mean, you know, they spend, I don't know, $1,000 to go for a day of fishing, you know, for a guide and a boat and all that, you know.
Yeah, as you know, that's like where I live, that's like the capital.
Oh, the river runs through it, Livingston, Montana.
And I know a lot of people who are guides too, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how much people pay for that stuff.
Yeah, and then they tip them too. It's like, wow, it wasn't enough to pay them $1,000 for it.
It's a good living for the fly fish.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just last winter or just last fall, I was coming down through, is it Ennis, Montana?
This is the place, yeah.
Yeah, there's like 1,000 of them there. I was coming down. Oh, what's that area up by west of the Tetons? Driggs and Victor. You know, the shit, man. Every other car's got a drift boat behind it. You know, especially at 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever.
That's how it is, just driving around in Montana. The drift boats outside of the houses, just parked outside the street.
It's insane. I love it when people are that passionate about their sports. I mean, because that's, you know, I'm passionate about, you know, hiking and paddling mostly, but you know, I still do the odd bicycle trip and stuff, you know.
Limbo Will used that word passion. He said that was kind of like his secret to kind of staying healthy and vital and like happy into old age.
Yeah.
Would you say that's kind of the same for you?
Yeah, passion's what it's all about for me. I mean, yeah, I'm happiest when I'm hiking. You know, it's how I clear my head or whatever, just like the exercise or whatever. Yeah, I'm happiest when I'm paddling and hiking. Yeah, yeah, it's just, yeah, total passion. Is that too short of an answer? I don't know. I mean,
It's good if it's short.
okay. Don't have to edit out all the other bullshit.
Yep.
What comes to your mind when you think of health? Like, what does it mean to be healthy?
Well, I love being fit, as I'm probably overweight right now. I like being fit and healthy. Yeah, I mean, there's that old saying. There's that old saying about, if you've got your health, you've got everything. I can't think of anything better than that. I mean, yeah, some people just aren't, fortunate enough to have that maybe, but yeah, boy, I just love it. I mean, that feeling, of being able to have the energy to do anything you want, that's incredible. Yeah.
Do you think is health a strictly physical thing, or are there other aspects that go into like being healthy?
Well, I think, yeah, keeping your mind straight, and like that works into that whole circle of maybe, the burning desire within to, do things, and yeah, to seek your passions and stuff, and yeah, to have the, the fortitude to go out and do it, yeah. You can edit out this part where I'm itching my ear and getting wax out of it.
That's part of the lifestyle.
Now you'll put it in there, I'm sure. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You could cover a lot of it. Can you describe an average day for me?
Well, I'm a early morning person normally, unless it's real cold. I give myself an extra little bit of time. But yeah, I like getting up and having most of my chores in the morning done, by sunrise, and kind of like seeing the sunrise, and I feel the strongest in the morning, or have the most energy in the morning. I don't know if it's true. It's just psychologically that's the way I feel. So I'm an early riser, and like to put in most of my miles, whether it's hiking or paddling in the morning hours, and then I guess I get lazy in the afternoon. But eating's kind of a all-day affair with me. I don't necessarily eat a breakfast. I'll hike a while and then eat something, or paddle a while and eat something. The food thing is kind of simplified over the years. I no longer carry a stove, and so basically, a lot of things you can just eat while you're hiking or something, and a lot of people do that. And but yeah, I mean, and I'm just mileage-wise average. I mean, I do 20 miles a day average. I mean, I can do more and have, but 20 to 25 miles a day is fine, with the pack weight being fairly low. There's some stuff in the deserts, man, where you're lucky you can do a mile an hour, but the Hayduke, for example. But generally, yeah. And then I like to be done, probably at least an hour before sunset, and then it's kind of like get some things done and then go to sleep. It's not that difficult. I don't know if that's an average day, but that seems like they kind of work out that way. Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple and sensible.
I like stupid.
All right, we'll go with stupid. I always thought if I ever get like a small sailboat and live on it for a while, I'm going to name it Kiss. For keep it simple, stupid. So many, because when I was doing that great loop around the eastern United States, it's actually a thing, right? That a lot of trawler type boats will do this, and you can kind of do it with the whole season. Like I spent 12 and a half months doing it, and I was basically on the same path as the motored vessels. And they would get ahead of me, and then 3 or 4 days later I'd catch up, and they're usually fixing something in every one of these ports of call or whatever. Something's always breaking. The refrigerator doesn't work, or the bilge bump's not working, or and I have just my canoe, and I just pull it out of the water, and there's nothing that can break on it basically. And but I always thought if I had a sailboat or something, I'd probably have as few systems as possible. I mean, you can get by with a small solar panel and a small battery, for example. You don't need to have 4,000 watts of solar panels and stuff, and yeah, and like they say about boats, the smaller the boat, the more it gets used. It's like, because they're, I don't know anything about big boats, but yeah, it's a lot of work to get them out on the water or whatever. Whereas a canoe, you flip it in the water, you go, and 5 minutes later, kayak a half an hour later. Kayaks are a pain in the ass to load.
So what is it with kayaks versus canoes?
Oh man, that's a whole documentary with me, man.
Dale kind of told me about his like prejudice against kayaks.
I've done probably most of my paddling in kayaks, but I prefer the canoe. I mean, the canoe, you can move around in a canoe, first of all. You can stand up in a canoe. You can load it in, a couple of minutes, but you have to come off the water sooner because they catch more wind, and they're a little less seaworthy, but I wouldn't say by much. And then a kayak is a total pain to load. It takes forever. I mean, we're talking about if you're, traveling with it, and you're putting, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks of food in it, you got to fill up every little nook and cranny. And plus, you can't move around much in a kayak. I've been out on a kayak several times, like 12 hours in a day where just, for practical purposes, you couldn't get out of the boat, So after 12, you can't hardly get out of a kayak after 12 hours. It's like, oh my God, and I never feel that way getting out of a canoe, because during a canoe you can move around all day. And I've spent 12 hours, 13 hours at a time in a canoe, and I love the motion of canoeing better. A single blade paddle, I just love that motion better. I often paddle my main traveling kayak has a rudder, and so you can power stroke and then correct with the rudder. And it's either way. I like using a single blade paddle. Maybe the ideal boat is the Kruger Seawind, which was developed by this guy Verlin Kruger from Lansing, Michigan area. And Norm has one. they have a cult following, It's a hybrid canoe kayak, so you can move around it in a bit and it's easy to load, but yet it doesn't catch as much wind, and it will take waves over the bow and stern more. So it's a hybrid, and it has a rudder, so you can just power stroke with a single blade.
Yeah, that sounds kind of a deal.
Yeah.
I sympathize with being stuck in a kayak for a long time after this road trip. Like, I'm sore just from sitting in the
I can imagine. I don't like to drive at all, so it's like, man, how you doing that? Alabama and West Texas?
I mean, I like driving and I like road trips just to see stuff. But
yeah, sure.
It's getting to be much on this truck.
And you're young enough that you haven't had a whole lot of opportunity yet in your life to see it all yet, so.
Definitely. Yeah, it's all new.
Yeah.
Like, how do you see this stuff continuing into the next 20, 30 years?
Well, now being 61, I know a lot of hikers that are still giving it pretty strong until, into their early 70s, but then it starts dropping off pretty quick after that. And there's a fortunate few out there that can still give it pretty good throughout their 70s. And then by 80, you're looking for easier trails, like the Rails to Trails things or something maybe. And I hope to be on track to do that into my early 80s, to be still cranking out the miles, hiking and paddling. Paddling's a little bit easier on the body in some respects because you're not carrying the weight on your body, but maneuvering the boat on and off shore can be more wearing on the body, and you worry about that a little bit, especially, we're talking landings and launch spots that aren't, designated as such. They're just, the shoreline, it's time to camp, and it's like, okay, that's a rocky shoreline to negotiate, and you need to kind of be pretty fit and, able-bodied enough to do that, to pull the gear out of the boat and then the boat out of the water as well. And yeah, but I'm going to give her a go. And then cycling, I think, a lot of people cycle well into their probably early 80s without any problems, Cycle touring is very forgiving. I mean, depending on where you're going, you can stay in a motel every night, and pick, nowadays with all the, different mapping routes and stuff, you can pick roads and areas that are to your liking.
Yeah, I think you can make that way easier.
Yeah, wind is the big problem bicycling. I think I'll call it a short day.
The last question I have, have you ever struggled with any sort of mental problems in your life? Addiction, depression, anything like that? If you're comfortable talking about it?
Yeah, no, not at all. And I mean, I know a few hikers that do, and I think it's great that they've found the outdoors to deal with that. I think it's great when people find what they need, for that. I've done a few magazine or newspaper articles or whatever, kind of helping out people that, man, I need something interesting to write. You suppose you could talk to me a bit? Sure, I don't mind. I can bullshit with the best of them. I'll make something up.
Start down all kinds of crazy
Yeah.
stories.
No, I think it's, like if you can work this into your passion of hiking and stuff, it's wonderful. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine you carrying all that food, all that equipment. Yeah, but
This is basically what I carry.
you seriously,
That camera,
when you're hiking,
yeah,
wow, that's a lot.
yeah. So,
Well, you're young. You got that going for you.
I know what you mean by trying to keep it simple, because doing all that stuff just complicates things.
Well, and you got to keep it dry too. Like
Yeah.
that's everything when you're paddling. Everything gets wet. You swamp the damn boat, man. Yeah, dry bags are dry until you use them for a few weeks and they start getting pinholes in them. You use anything, it starts wearing out, and it's all your shit ends up getting wet on a paddling trip.
Yeah.
And even on hiking trips, you get soaked from time to time.
Yep.
It's a little bit easier sometimes just to set up your tent or whatever. I'm just like, I'm hiding out here the rest of the day.
I've done that before.
Yeah, I know somebody that once took a nice digital camera. This is back when they were a new thing, like in the early 2000s. They took it out of their pack or whatever, put it down on the floor of their tent, and the only spot of the floor of the tent that got wet was where they put that damn digital camera.
Oh no! Created like a divot all along.
I guess, yeah. It's like, damn, bad luck there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that close to happen before. I saw it happening, so I was able to hold my camera.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's.
I mean, I traveled up the Inside Passage. I met up with a guy that was pretty much into photography thing, and carrying lenses this long and stuff, and salt water is terrible on anything, and
I'm sure.
oh man, I think he destroyed a couple of camera bodies and a lens or two on that trip.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I've broken. I've only lost one camera body to water damage, but I've broken a couple lenses. The camera's tipping over.
okay.
It's just a part of the job, I think.
You didn't say tripping over them and knocking them over.
That was wind. That was just my.
Oh, okay.
setting up.
Now, I saw somebody do that at a wedding once. The photographer's, jumping all around. And he kicked his tripod and the damn thing went over. I don't know that he ruined it, but it's just kind of a comic.
That's always a fear of mine. I've tipped over too many cameras, or just watched them tip over, so
Yeah.
I always try to be aware of that.
Yeah.
I think that's all the questions I have. Anything
Well-
you want to say?
Go do it. Life's too short.
Yeah, I mean, that's the simplest advice you
Yeah.
can give. Just get out there and do it. People find so many reasons to not do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's not a dress rehearsal, I mean, I don't know. There's a famous French philosopher, I don't remember his name now, it translated into English. It's my art and my trade is living, and that's all I really want to do is live, so.
That's a good way to look
I
at
don't
it.
I don't even know if you're still recording any of that, but test 1 2 3.
If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe.